Today on Sports Central, we'll be going over our next NFL prediction of this 2020 offseason, and it will be over the San Francisco 49ers. And this is a team that made it all the way to the Super Bowl last season. They were a huge contender all of last season. I mean, they were undefeated for quite a while, and this is a huge surprise team as well. I mean, no one expected them to hardly make it to 10 wins, let alone make it all the way to the Super Bowl. So yeah, once again, I mean, for the 49ers, overall just a great season. It looked a lot like how they were in the early 2010s. So but yeah, overall for the 49ers, this is a team that was 15-4 overall last season. Once again made it to the Super Bowl. And I mean, if you look back at 2017 when this team first got Jimmy Garoppolo, they were pretty good towards the end of that season. And of course, Jimmy Garoppolo was injured for the majority of the 2018 season. So going into 2019, there wasn't a lot of hype because everyone kind of forgot about Jimmy Garoppolo. And so, yeah, I'm sure pretty much everyone was blindsided by that. But with that, today we're going to be going over our full prediction on the 49ers. We're going to be going over a full prediction on their schedule, as well as a full preview in the process. So yeah, with that, let's look at your season trends from 2019 for the 49ers. They were 8-0 between September and October, so they went completely undefeated between their first 2 months of action, and they were undefeated for a good chunk in November as well. I mean, this team was overall just a great team all season long. I mean, they started out very hot too. Lots of really good wins in there. Of course, as you can see by the key wins down below, they beat the Packers 37-8, and that was really where, I mean, most people realized that this 49ers team was for real. I mean, to blow out Aaron Rodgers and the Packers 37-8, I mean, that is very, very impressive. They also had a big win against the Saints, 48-46. Also had a win against the Seahawks on the road, 26-21. And for them to get a win against the Seahawks too, can't forget about that one. I mean, Seattle's a very tough place to play, and there was a ton of pressure going into that game because I believe the winner of that game would have, or the loser of that game would have been a 5 seed. So basically, the 49ers would have moved all the way down to a 5 seed from the 1 seed. So that was a huge game for both sides. Overall, though, in the playoffs, they had 2 big wins, and that was against the Minnesota Vikings in the first week, 27-10, and they also beat up the Packers again, 37-20. So, yeah, they had 2 big wins over the Packers last season, and to do that against Aaron Rodgers and a team like that was very impressive by the Niners. Moving on to your returning production for this upcoming season, they returned their starting quarterback, Jimmy Garoppolo, and I think he's a quarterback that the 49ers need to go with for a long time. He's a long-term quarterback, in my opinion. I mean, he put up some pretty great stats last season, and if he can stay healthy, he's going to be a great quarterback for many years to come. Of course, he had nearly 4,000 yards last season, 27 touchdowns, 13 interceptions, and a nearly 70% completion rate. So, yeah, overall great season for Jimmy Garoppolo. He's got a ton of upside, in my opinion. They also returned their top running back, Raheem Mostert, which he's a big running back, one of the best in their division. He had right around 1,000 yards with 8 touchdowns last season. They also returned their second running back, Tevin Coleman, which he had just right over 720 yards last season with 6 touchdowns. And they also returned their star tight end and their top in receiving last season in George Kittle. And he was a great tight end. He was a big surprise in my opinion too. I did not see that coming out of George Kittle. He had over 1,000 yards with 5 touchdowns last season. They also returned their top wide receiver, Deebo Samuel, which he was another wide receiver that really came out of nowhere. I mean, no one really was talking about him heading into the 2020 season. However, he put up nearly 1,000 yards last season along with 6 touchdowns, so he is a big weapon for the 49ers, and he's going to be a big part of this team going into 2020. They also bring in wide receiver Brandon Ayuk out of Arizona State, and of course, in Arizona State, he was a great receiver for sure, and he was definitely one of the best receivers in the Pac-12, if not the best last season. I mean, he was a great receiver, so he's going to be a big addition to this 49ers team, and he's also going to be able to take the position of Emmanuel Sanders. Of course, he is no longer with the team as long as Matt Breida isn't either. I mean, he was their 3rd running back last season, so I mean, the running back situation still is looking pretty good, so I don't think losing Matt Breida is going to have a big impact on this team, but in the end, though, I still think it was a great addition bringing in a new wide receiver in Brandon Ayuk. I think that was a great decision, a great draft pick by the Niners. They also returned their 3rd receiver in Kendrick Bourne, which he didn't have as big of an impact on this team last season. He was able to put up right around 300 yards. So, yeah, he did have a part on this team, but not a very big one. As far as the offensive line goes, you lose 1 on the offensive line as well as 1 on the defensive line, and you also lose 1 in the secondary. So overall, this defense is not losing a lot at all. I mean, this defense is looking really good heading into 2020. And yeah, that brings up the question. Chances at another Super Bowl run in 2020. And quite honestly, they do lose some talent, but in the end, I think that this team is definitely going to be a big league-wide contender going into 2020. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me a single bit to see them win their division. Of course, their division is always one of the tougher ones. Of course, I mean, they were in a big dogfight with the Seattle Seahawks last season, so yeah, of course, I expect that to continue into 2020. I think it's still going to be a tough division, but I think the 49ers definitely might be my leading candidate to win that division going into 2020. I mean, this team still has got a ton of talent to work with. Jimmy Garoppolo is only on the rise right now, in my opinion. Big things coming for the 49ers in 2020. As far as your schedule goes, you start the season on September 13th against the Arizona Cardinals at home. Then you got to travel to New York for a couple weeks. You got the Jets and the Giants in back-to-back weeks on the road. You also have the Eagles and the Dolphins to kick off your October, followed by the Rams and the Patriots. And then you got a really tough stretch of games there between the Patriots and you can consider all the way into December. Of course, yeah, I'd consider your November to definitely be by far your toughest month. I mean, you got to play the Seahawks on the road. You also have the Packers at home, along with the Saints and the Rams both on the road, and then you have to play a Bills team that I do think will be a really good one in 2020. So all around, that November is looking really tough for the Niners. But in the end, your December does look a little bit better. You got the Redskins, Cowboys, Cardinals, and Seahawks. And of course, Cowboys are always a tough team at home. And then the Seahawks, of course, I still expect to be pretty good. So in the end, for the 49ers, not all that tough of a schedule as long as you get past November. And here's what I'm expecting out of your first half of your schedule. I think you go 5-3 between your first couple of months. I think you beat the Cardinals and the Jets right off the bat. However, I do think you lose your second game in New York against the Giants. I also think you get 3 wins against the Eagles, Dolphins, and Rams. With all 3 of those being home games, I think those are pretty easy for me to pick. However, I do think that you will lose the next couple of games against the Patriots and the Seahawks. I just think, you're going across the country in 2 weeks, basically. You have to go all the way across the country to go to New England to play the Patriots, which I don't expect the Patriots to be as good. Of course, Tom Brady is no longer there. But I do expect them to still be a contending team, so that still will be a tough game no matter what. And then the next week, you got to travel all the way back to Seattle to play the Seahawks. And let me remind you that it's going to be a shorter week for them. So, once again, it's just going to be kind of tough, I think, for the 49ers to win both of those games. It's possible that they do win one, but I don't expect them to win both by any means. In fact, I do expect you guys to also lose your next 2 after that. I think the Packers game, that one's basically a toss-up for me. I think Aaron Rodgers is going to be fired up going into that game. The 49ers in of itself ruined the Packers season in 2019. Of course, the Packers, they were 13-3 in the regular season. I think their final record was like 14-4, I believe. Yeah, and 2 of their losses were from the Niners. Of course, they lost to them in the NFC Championship game and also a big loss in the regular season. So I think the Packers are going to be really fired up in that one. And I think the Packers get the win, actually, there in San Francisco. However, I also think you lose the next game against the Saints on the road. You also were able to get a big win in New Orleans back in 2019, but I don't think it happens this year. And so basically going into your final stretch of the season, it really does not look like the 49ers could be a playoff team. Of course, they're going to be 5-5 heading into your December. And I do expect you to get 6 wins to finish off the season, though. I think the 49ers are going to be a really hot team down the stretch. I think you're going to beat the Rams as well as a big win over the Bills. And after that Bills game, I think it's going to be straight up for the 49ers getting wins against the Redskins, Cowboys, Cardinals, and Seahawks. So your record prediction will be 11-5, which really is not all that bad. Of course, it's a little bit of a decline in comparison to 2019, but still 11-5. Great record for the 49ers, and I just think, once again, that stretch between late October and going into November is just going to be really tough for this team. It'd be tough for any team. You got to play the Seahawks, Packers, Saints, and Patriots in basically 4 consecutive weeks. So it's going to be really tough for this Niners team to win all 4 of them. So, yeah, with that, here's our prediction stats. I do think that this team goes 7-1 at home. Your only home loss will be against the Green Bay Packers, and I think your other 4 losses will be on the road. As far as the division goes, you're going to go 5-1. Your only loss in your division is going to be a loss against the Seahawks on the road. Then you're going to go 8-4 in the conference. So yeah, with that about wraps up our prediction on the 49ers. If you enjoyed this preview, be sure to slap a like on it and subscribe as well. Really helps out the channel, and I really appreciate that a ton. But yeah, once again, let me know your thoughts in the comments below on the Niners if you think something different. I'd like to hear your thoughts on that. But yeah, once again, thanks for watching. Show some support if you'd like to. I will see you all later.